Welcome back to Life Lessons from the Screen. Hopefully, you'll be watching this in the month of February. And then February is the time for love, you know? And we were thinking, let's do a special. We've got two movies that we're going to analyze is La La Land and Past Lives. We're going to analyze them in our typical format, see what we can learn from them. But we just thought, let's intro it. Let's tell you what our favorite films are and what we learned from them and what our expectations are in general about romance films.
Yeah, so for me, well, it's interesting because I feel like maybe a lot of girls growing up, they watch a lot of Disney princess films, and it kind of sets them up to kind of think of it as kind of I don't know, an unrealistic expectation of, getting saved and meeting the perfect person and having the perfect relationship. And you get these kind of things drilled into you that it's going to happen like it does in the films or cartoons. And yeah, it doesn't really happen like that. There's a lot more work that goes into love and relationships and things like that that it shows.
Who was your favorite Disney princess couple?
So for me, I don't know, as a kid, I liked oh my god, I don't even remember who I really liked back then, but I really liked Mulan. I thought she was really cool. And I think because obviously she's like she pretended to be a guy and then like got to like do something like saving things and also like Pocahontas and Ariel. Yeah, there's a lot of them that I
I
like.
think now our Disney era was just Prince comes and that. But now these kids have got Brave,
Mm,
Merida, they've got Moana, who go
yeah.
out, seek adventure. Even Frozen is the relationship about
Mm,
the sisters.
yeah. Makes it more interesting, yeah.
I kind of like Tangle.
I was about to say Tangled next because I
Yeah,
was gonna say I really like Rapunzel and Flynn's relationship because they're a bit more
because
like jokey and like I don't know. He doesn't save her particularly because she also saves him a lot, so it's a nice change on it.
yeah, so I think for me the reason why I was just Tangled is okay, she came off quite naive in the beginning because obviously she got locked up, but then the frying pan,
Mm,
her being resourceful, she
exactly.
kind once she learned and it was kind of resourceful. I feel like Jasmine in the live action, she kind of had that same I want to change, I've got power, I don't need, at the end she was just like, my wish is to be Sultan, like the higher up. And I thought,
Mm,
okay, I like what they're doing now is you don't need a man. And then I'm like, even if a princess has a man, it's kind of like
it's like a
just
friend more than a
yeah.
yeah.
Mm. And I think, yeah, no, but I do agree. I always go back to the Hunger Games, like Peter
Mm.
and Katniss, because I feel like Katniss is very strong-headed,
I was gonna
and
say it's a
sh
very different play on it, isn't it? Yeah.
I feel like she pushes 2 against, I don't want to be the princess, but she still kind of has feelings, and it's
Mm.
very complicated, but it shows layers and complexity.
Yeah, I think Katniss's character is interesting because normally when it's a protagonist, female protagonist, they're normally quite like romantic and like sensitive, but she's really like headstrong and quite like I don't know, more logical, and Pete is the more sensitive one. So I think that was a good like yeah, it was a good
Mhm.
parallel to what you're used to as kids, which was nice.
I always felt like it's like I'm not a delusional. I know these romance films have a everything is daisy, but when you go I vaguely remember watching Normal People and
Oh, okay.
kind of you can see the complexities, of miscommunication, this, that, and I feel like it grounds it into reality sometimes that, it is all about the journey of you two, kind of communication.
Mm, yeah. I think that's important with like La La Land as well. I mean, we'll get into the analysis in another episode, but I feel like films where it's not all kind of perfect and there are like problems in it, and sometimes the problems don't get resolved, the way you want them
Mm,
to. I think it's nice when films actually show that side of a relationship, and that love isn't just like easy. It has a lot of challenges there as well.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I feel like because I watch a lot of Korean dramas, and comparing it to Western dramas, like your typical, like, Riverdale and all those type of, you feel the connection. It's like they don't even hold, they don't even kiss till like the 10th episode. You know, it's you get that journey of the connection, and I feel
Mm.
like you get the purity of like
Yeah.
that. There's always you have your tropes. There's always the triangle, the third person, but
Mm.
it
It
kind
builds
of,
it up, doesn't it? Yeah.
but it's still in that stage of, like, in that reality of like disillusion, like, kind of
Mm.
formula, like,
Because it doesn't
but
happen like exactly like that. Yeah.
yeah, they always get married at the end. You
Yeah.
can kind of predict once you watch the couple, you kind of can predict. But for me, it's kind of that innocence, and they always do enemies to lovers quite well. You see a lot of them that I love is they hate each other from the beginning.
Same.
They're taking the Mickey out of each other, and then they realize they're not so bad. There's
Yeah.
always an episode when they're like, "Oh, this guy's got trauma. That's why
Yeah.
he's kind of blunt." And I feel like it
I feel
brings
like it makes
layers
it
onto
more.
that.
I was about to say it makes it more like human because and it makes it more interesting because for me personally, I'm like you. I prefer when there's a bit of like they're not perfect matches straight away because if it's like lovey dovey from the beginning, it's like what's the point of me watching this? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just boring to see people get on together 100% of the time. You want a bit of like complex relationships and you want them to be like a bit abrasive with each other and not get on perfectly and then realize actually we are, you know, compatible. It's more interesting like that and it's more realistic as well.
Yeah. Because I feel like this whole idea of love at first sight is, to me, is love at first personality. You
Mm,
grow to love who they are. Because okay, you get attracted by the looks, but it's about the personality.
mm,
So that's why I kinda like enemies to lovers, because they slowly realize this facade that they have
yeah.
is kind of built on, it's either trauma or just
Mm.
misunderstanding.
And it's always fun to like, as you say, like understand the trauma behind it and then, there'll be an episode like, I don't know, 10 episodes in where you realize, oh actually they're not there's a reason for the way they are. And then it's almost like quite therapeutic to watch someone unpack their trauma and then get rid of that and then become like, compatible with
Mm,
someone and friends with someone. Yeah, I really
yeah.
like that as well.
There's always this trope as well. A rich CEO, poor, I don't know if you noticed, like, in K-dramas, there's always that, like, rich people, poor people. But then you learn the CEO guy is always attracted because she's different from
Mm.
the, like, rich girls that he gets to know. She's quirky, you know? But I always found that you slowly learn that, the way they see it is like, "Oh, she doesn't care about my money, she just, like," you know? I always find this cute, but
Yeah,
I
me
kind
too.
of like, yeah, I always kind of like this, going back to, we've done a review of an analysis about past lives, but I feel like I kind of like that because it's rooted in reality.
That one I
That
think is yeah, it's more sensitive, isn't it? Like
mm,
realistic and yeah.
if that situation happened to you, you would kind of feel you empathize with them, because you can swap yourself with the main character because it's quite realistic in a,
I completely agree.
it's not fantasized that they're gonna end up getting together or getting married. it's kind of you see the hardships of them trying to make it work.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I like those kind of films where it's more like I don't know, sensitive
Personable.
and a bit
Yeah.
personable. Yeah, like past lives, as you say, you can empathize with them. There's another film I like called Before Sunrise. I think there's like three films. If you've heard of,
I've heard
yeah.
of them. Those are my like, cause I love my Korean dramas. That's one of my romance stuff. But I've heard that I've heard a lot about those movies, and when you get older, you can relate
Mm.
to them because you've lived those circumstances. I've heard.
Well, yeah, I've only seen the first one, and I think the second one, like they meet up again. The third one, they meet up again. But the first one's, yeah, when they're like, I guess my age. So watching it, it's like quite. It was kind of realistic because they kind of meet randomly and they just go on like a day together, and then they leave again, and it's like, I don't know, it just feels more realistic,
Mm.
as you say, with past lives similar kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, you just, yeah, kind of sad,
It's just yeah.
heart wrenching kind of thing, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's just like I feel like the next level of like romance is going to be the social media era about like
Mm.
all these dating apps because I feel like
Because you've already seen
when
some
you have
K-dramas about that kind of thing anyway, but yeah.
yeah, but I feel like we're at the age where you're just judged by looks. It's no like
Mm.
meet cute or you've dropped something and he's
Mm.
dropped something. Those kind of meetings in
Like, you don't
coffee
really,
shop.
I was gonna say, you don't really, I feel like people in general, they don't really like talking to each other as much or like making friendships as they used to probably back in the, like, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago. Like, these days you just say like hi to someone or like, you say, oh, sorry, do you want to sit here? Kind of like, you don't really have an actual conversation with people anymore. Shame. And I think that it's interesting, yeah, the rise of like meeting people online and having these kind of, yeah, your first impression just being like a picture rather than like an actual true representation of a person. You're like judging on instincts about, yeah, what they look like instead of personality. So it's, yeah, I do think it's something that's going to be really interesting in the next few years, like exploring that kind of relationship in film, because that's where it's heading. Yeah.
Mm. Because it's just like you have your like rom-coms is always a situation like it's always like funny they meet.
Mm.
It's like I always love the trope of marriage of convenience,
Mm.
but and they love to love each other. But I feel like realistically, that's you're not gonna bump into someone or you know
I feel like
unless you're
people only meet people in like clubs and things. It's like you don't really meet at a coffee shop these days or like a cafe or a bookstore. It's never that wholesome anymore. It's more like, yeah, online mostly. So it's an interesting change.
yeah. So we're just gonna what life lessons can we learn from romance movies in general? And I think the main one is communication. I always felt like com- you always see it in the climax of a movie. They've miscommunicated something, like a place or something. When the and it's always like they're not happy in the relationship, but they're not gonna communicate it to someone. And I feel like genuinely in life, you can take communication is a big like thing. I feel like makes or breaks a relationship.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think communication is a big one and understanding where you are at like your life stages, things like that. Because like, but I guess that kind of comes into communication because if you don't say what you want versus what the other person wants versus what you want 5 years down the line, it's like, you see people that one of them wants a kid, one doesn't, and it's like, you're like, why haven't you
Game
discussed
over.
this earlier? Yeah, because it's gonna not match you up at all.
Bro, that's what I was saying. And I kind of feel like, when you're coming of age movies, when they go to
Mm.
college or uni, because they're all like in America, they're always like
Mm.
college, you can see that what I kind of like about some of them is like they're never going to end up together because they're on two different
Yeah.
paths. And that's kind of realistic because you're in stages of life. When you're young, you grow up and realize I'm not the same person. I want
Mm.
to move out, do this career. And I think once you get older and stable, that's when I think you build up more of the connections. But then you have to go searching for it. If you don't meet someone at uni or work, it's difficult, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I read somewhere that it's just like if you want to, this goes to friendships. If you want to make friends, you do an activity. So, for example, if you joined a social, like a knitting social or like a stuff,
Mm,
you you connect with like-minded people, and then you can end up having that meet cute situation. But I
mm,
think you shouldn't expect it out of thin air. It takes work, especially when you're not in environments when you're forced to meet people all the time.
mm. That's it. I think you have to make the opportunities for yourself sometimes, because like it's easy to just sit back and expect life to happen to you, but it doesn't really work that way. You have to make life happen to you. You know, you have to actively go and live life and create those opportunities for yourself. Yeah.
And I just feel like there's there's no and I feel like people are getting married less because just society is changing, because there's this whole thing about like people are having kids later, but then that's because people are more career driven.
Mm. And you can't afford it sometimes. Yeah,
And I
exactly.
feel like everybody doesn't need a kid, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that as long like you have to kind of figure out who you are as a person before you kind of get in a relationship with people. It's important because if you don't know what
Pre-
you want, you can't just like live like
expect.
that your whole life. Yeah, you have to figure out that kind of stuff before you meet someone and find someone. Yeah.
There was this TV show I think I watched. It was called Dollface or something, and it was about female friendships. About this woman was like she went full on with her romantic relationship, and when that went south, she lost her identity.
Mm,
When they broke up, she went back to her friends, but it was all about kind of building that identity after you've had a breakup. What I learned from that was you just like you should have an identity with your partner and without your
yeah,
partner.
I agree. Yeah, because my there's someone I knew who like told me that some good advice that like you should always have a hobby with your partner and a hobby without because like God forbid if something ever happened to them, not a breakup, but if like they passed away or something, you don't want to do something that constantly reminds you of them. You have to have something for yourself as well because as you say, like if you break up and you lose your identity, that's so like demoralizing. You have to have something for yourself that you're focused on by yourself. I think it's important.
And going with that, don't change yourself to fit into them, because when you're on that meeting stage, you kind of start changing. Oh, it's like, oh, I like that type of music. Even if you don't like it, you kind of
Mm,
faking it, but then they're attached to that idea of you.
yeah,
But
exactly.
when you start being boyfriend and girlfriend, then they realize, oh, what I kind of explored with dating is not, you're not that person. So it's kind of that once you are yourself, show yourself, you will attract that person.
Mm.
There's no point attracting someone
And a fake
who,
personality. Yeah.
yeah, because I feel like a lot of people do that, and I think,
Mm,
say if you wanted to just go out, then even if you get married and you change your whole personality, you lost
mm.
yourself. Yeah, we're not about that life.
No, and also like I think it's interesting because compromise is a really important part of a relationship. But like I feel like you should never compromise to the point where you're losing yourself, or as you say, like you're becoming someone else. Because like,
Mhm.
you know, you should kind of balance each other compromise wise. Like, if you want a job, but they want to have a different job, but if you want to live somewhere, they want to live somewhere, you have to kind of discuss these things beforehand before you like start resenting the other person because, your life isn't matching with their life. But yeah, anyway, it's interesting and it's important to compromise, but at the same time don't feel like you're
Yeah,
you're not living your best life because of it. So,
I feel like compromising, for example, that say if you wanted to move into a different area and it didn't have like a few things that you didn't like, you got to compromise that. Is is there stuff that you wanted? Is it a
Mm.
make or break situation?
Yeah.
But it benefits both of you. But when you're compromising, yeah,
Yeah.
like if you know you didn't want kids and you knew he wanted kids, you shouldn't expect that other person to change their
Mm.
mind. So that's when the compromise affects your
Yeah.
relationship. So,
And your
you know,
self-worth, yeah.
so for example, if you don't like sushi and he wants sushi once a week, that's not a big deal. You could be
Mm.
like, "Oh, that's fine. You can have the sushi. I can get something, but we'll still have the date in the house." You
Yeah.
know, we can have a takeaway. So I get what I like. You get what you like. We can have a date in the house
Mm.
instead of going to a sushi restaurant knowing that you don't like sushi. So that's a compromise which works. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But when
and
it
I
comes to
think
like, if like say you wanted to do a certain job and the person didn't let you, it's like for you to think, is this worth me not following my dream versus staying? It's kind of like La La Land, where like you know they wanted their own dreams, so they realized, oh, we can't reach those dreams with each other. We have to separate first, for a bit, and then it turned out the way it did. But yeah, you have to important
yeah.
decisions.
So if you watched our previous episode about Tit Tit Boom, and if you watched that film, you can see the relationship Jonathan Larson had with,
Mm.
I think her name was Susan. She was just like, I gave you time to see if you wanted to move. She gave him time, but he didn't respond. So then they realized that nobody's going to compromise, and it ends up yeah, it's tricky because obviously we're only like in our 20s. I'm
Mm.
24, so it's like we're not at that point where we are compromising a lot, but it's
Yeah,
kind of like we're still figuring out what we
yeah.
want. So that's a good thing to be like, look, you know, I've told you I don't want kids, but I that's you never know, it could change, but it's kind of being realistic, like,
Mm.
it's kind of, that's why
Yeah,
you
you
kind of
shouldn't put
want
your life on pause for
yeah.
something that might not even happen, kind of thing. Yeah.
And then you discuss like other ways to kind of make it happen if you what you wanted. I feel like that's why you kind of want someone a similar stage of life.
Mm.
Because you know, there's no point of you going out with someone who wants to settle down and knows that they want to live a life, but you want to travel. You obviously, you know that's not going to work because you're at two crossroads of your life. And I feel like a lot of the films I watch, it's always where one just wants to settle down and the other one's like, I want to do more, I want to do more. So it's kind of like they're not aligned. So if you kind of figured out you still want to explore, you find someone who's similar but different.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I hope you like our takes on coming up in the next 2 weeks. We're going to talk about La La Land and Past Lives. So we recommend you watch them because we've only watched La La Land two. Well, I've only watched it 2 times, and we've only watched Past Lives once. So you kind of get our raw reaction. And I feel like with romance movies, you can watch them and get different opinions throughout your life stages. So if you never experienced a breakup, you can't relate to the main characters sometimes. So I think for me, romance movies are perfect because, at a stage where you're naive, you're like, oh, romance is so pure. But once you've had a heartbreak, you start analyzing stuff differently. And I think
Mm.
you should always learn from them because you can get a vague idea. Yeah, so hopefully you like what we've got to say about and tell us what your favorite romance movie is. What genre and trope? Comment it. You can message us on social media at the m- we're still new to this. You can find us on social medias at the
From underscore the underscore screen.
yeah, you can find us from the from underscore the underscore screen on all social media platforms. Trust me, we'll get this, so hopefully you can follow us on those social medias. Yeah, and yeah, our social medias will be down below. Yeah. Any last words?
No, yeah, thanks for watching. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Goodbye.